And we are live. Hey guys, what's going on? James here. Welcome back to yet another episode of the MrBucsNation podcast. Joining me is Billy from Will_Walsh_NFL on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Billy, how you doing today, man?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. Excited to talk some Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, so today we pivoted a little bit, right? And this will tie into it. We had some topics set, but we decided to go with a 2024 free agency preview for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I feel like that's a pretty important thing. We're a week and a half away from free agency, Billy, and there's a lot that's been going on so far up to this point, and we're going to kind of dive into it as we do our preview, okay? The first thing we got to talk about, though, is that the Buccaneers. But tell you what, we'll save it because it is going to be a topic that we'll be talking about here coming up. But we're going to start off by talking about the re-signings that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have to make. We're going to talk about guys that we do think are going to be back, the guys that we don't think are going to be back, and kind of take it from there. So, Billy, are you ready to get started, sir?
Ready to go.
All right. Well, let me go ahead and pull up the list of the free agents for 2024 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we will go straight down the list. So, Billy, I'm going to ask you whether or not you feel these guys will or won't be back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as we go down through this list. So, the first name on the list, it's the big one, Mike Evans. There's been a lot of discussion with Mike Evans, whether or not he will or won't be back. A lot of people in the, let's call it the national media, want Mike Evans essentially to leave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for lack of a better way of putting it. What are your thoughts on Mike Evans and whether or not he will or won't be back?
I can give you an emphatic yes. Mike Evans will be back.
Okay, and I
I know
agree with that. Well,
yeah, we've been on this topic for a long time, and
we've
we're
been
both definitive on it.
right. We've been on it for a long, long time. We do believe Mike Evans will be back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is what it is. Devin White. Now, this is where things get interesting because, and this is where I said we're going to start tying in some of this stuff, some quotes from the combine. Jason Light was asked if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been having discussions with Devin White regarding a new contract, and Jason Light said no, and that there's a lot of tough decisions that need to be made. Thoughts and opinions on Devin White and whether or not he will be back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, I think the writing for Devin White has been on the wall for a long time, probably since almost this time last year, essentially. When Devin White asked for the trade and wanted the big contract, I think it would have taken a lot, kind of a perfect storm scenario for Devin White to stay around and get that big contract. He would have had to play a lights out season, which of course we can look back with, our 2020 hindsight and know that that did not happen. And I would be very surprised. I'd be borderline shocked if Devin White is back under any circumstance, especially after the benching and, just the entirety of what his career was to what it has become. I just don't think that. I think the best thing for both sides is a fresh start.
I agree. I think that much like in the case where the general consensus is that a guy like Mike Evans will be back, the general consensus is that a guy like Devin White will not be back. Look, even if Devin White played well, it would still be tough. The
Yeah.
Bucs would still have some really tough decisions to make, even if Devin White had played well. The fact that he didn't makes that decision a lot easier for the Bucs, in my opinion. So, it is
And I
what it
don't
is.
think and I don't think it's not a failed draft pick or anything like that. The Buccaneers drafted Devin White. It was successful in a very short window when they needed it to be successful. And good general managers, good teams, you recognize when you got to move on. And right now for the Bucs, it's just that time.
I agree. Moving on then to the next name, it is Levante David. Now, this one's a bit of an interesting name. Now, I will say, Jason Light did say that they are working on extensions for Mike Evans, Levante David, Baker Mayfield, Antoine Winfield Jr. as well. So, thoughts and opinions about this. You also had the comments from Levante David where he said, he wants to retire a Buck. He'd love to be in Tampa Bay. Now, some people had misconstrued that as it's either the Bucks or retirement for Levante David. That's not what he said. There were some reports coming out talking about that. That's just not accurate. Um, and that isn't to say that that Levante David wants to leave, but he does want to retire a Buck for sure. And I think the
Yeah.
Buccaneers do want him to retire a Buck.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the headline that came out of the interview. But if you watch and get the context of what he's actually saying, yeah, like you said, I don't think that it's Bucks or nothing. I think it was just, yes, I'd like to remain with the Bucks. Um, I don't I don't doubt at all that Levante David will be back. I think in terms of recent memory, after the Super Bowl, I was slightly concerned that the Bucks may part ways with Levante David, but I would be really surprised if Levante David again, near the very, very end of his career, the Bucks would like to have him back. He'd like to be back. The 1 year deal, it was there last year. I don't see a situation in which they would have a hard time coming to terms again. I do think it may be later down the line, though, because I do think he'll get pushed to the back in terms of the order of priorities, but I don't think that means it won't happen.
And speaking of priorities, the next name on the list, arguably, the biggest priority, is Baker Mayfield coming in on this list. And look, me and you have been very adamant about this as well. I think Baker's coming back.
Yeah. I mean, James, we are representing members of the Baker Brigade.
It's true. It's
We
true.
would probably get the titles revoked if we said anything else. But yes, I think Baker Mayfield will be back. I think it's more when than if. And obviously, I'm very curious to see what the contract will be. What is the guarantee? What is the yearly salary? What is the length? It's very exciting to see. I think Baker Mayfield has the ability to kind of leverage the Bucs a little bit if he wants to, because I think the Buccaneers are really without options for the most part in the situation. It'll just be interesting to see how desperate the Buccaneers are and how much Baker Mayfield and his representation take advantage of that desperation. But yeah, I think Baker Mayfield for sure. Slam dunk, he's coming back.
I agree. Next name on the list is Greg Gaines. Now, this is the first name that we've kind of come up on besides Devin White, where we haven't really talked about it a lot, but you know, I mean, Greg Gaines didn't necessarily do a lot for the Bucs this past season. I would say if the money's right, and by that I mean like a veteran minimum type of deal, why not? But if it's more than that, I could see the Buccaneers going elsewhere.
Yeah, I know Todd Bowles um he gave a lot of praise to Gaines when he had to step in for Vita last season and start. And Gaines did record a sack in that game, but Vita's absence was very noticeable. And I don't know that Greg Gaines is irreplaceable as a backup nose tackle. So, like you said, if it's a situation where you could get him back and maintain continuity, that's great. But if you have to look elsewhere, I don't think that it's a situation where, oh no, what will we do?
Next name on the list is Will Golston, who was actually brought back. He continued his streak with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Billy, I think Will Golston's going to retire. I think that that's just going to be the fact of the matter. If he doesn't retire, I still don't really see a scenario where he comes back to the Bucs. What do you think?
I'm gonna say if he, I'm with you that he might retire. I'm gonna say if he doesn't retire, I think he's back. I think it's gonna be a similar situation to Levante David, but way down the line. I think he'll get pushed super far down the priority list. I'm just thinking for a guy like Will Golston, if he doesn't retire, you figure how many more seasons is the man actually going to be interested in playing football? He's had a very long, successful NFL career. How much longer do you want to play? And do you want to uproot your life for a nominal amount of money relative to what NFL salaries are for potentially a 1 year stint on a different team?
It's true. Matt Fowler's the next name on the list. I think we're both in agreement on this. He ain't coming back. He made us want to be due for a fresh start anyway, after he was the starter and then got benched. So pretty unfortunate there for Matt Filer. I think we're both in agreement that he's probably going to move on.
Yes, I would say so.
Antoine Winfield Jr. is next on the list. And look, it's either the guy gets franchise tagged or he gets a long-term deal. And I know that we've been talking about a lot of these names, being like, oh, this guy's coming back, this guy's coming back. Folks, this is going to be the brunt of the Bucs offseason is bringing a lot of these guys back, right? and Antoine Winfield Jr. is going to be a part of that, Billy. I think he will be back, be it on the franchise tag, which is what Rick Stroud had reported, or be it on a long term deal. Do you agree?
Yes, I would be very surprised if it's a long-term deal now. It may be one later in the offseason, but in the present term, yes. Franchise tag, Antoine Winfield Jr. I say it a lot, and it's like it doesn't get a lot of pushback. I'm gonna keep saying I think Antoine Winfield Jr. might be position for position the best, if not the best, then the second best player on the whole entire team. While his positional value may be lower than Baker's or Mike's just because he's a safety, it doesn't change the fact he's invaluable to the Buccaneers defense. Todd Bowles is a defensive-minded coach, and Antoine Winfield Jr. is his weapon basically to deploy. So yes, I think Antoine Winfield Jr. They will not let him go.
It's true. I mean, I agree with that 100%. Um, I think that, again, you know how good the guy is. You know how just valuable he is to the Buccaneers organization. I have no doubts that he I have no doubts that he will be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Sorry, the chat's distracting me. They're trying to say that the Bucs traded for Justin Fields. Don't think that's a thing. I'm not. I'm going to say that's not a thing,
Did we
but
just get April Fools on March 1st?
we might have. We might have. But I mean, if you want to look that up real quick, Billy, while we go through the rest of the names,
Oh, I'd love to lose.
Aaron Stinney's the next name on the list. I think that Aaron Stinney's going to be a guy who I could see coming back, Billy. A very solid backup guard is a guy who just really does some good work. I think that he's a guy who can be a fringe starter if you need him to be, is a guy who, if we talked about guard being a need for the Bucs this upcoming offseason, and it still is, could certainly be a guy who can be brought back and at least be a quality backup.
Yeah, Justin Fields, as far as I can see, is not a Tampa Bay Buccaneer.
Mm-mm-mm.
As far as Aaron Stinney goes, yeah, absolutely. I think if Aaron Stinney, I agree. I think he's a fringe starter. I think he's a guy you could turn to in a pinch. A very, very quality backup. People forget it's a Super Bowl champion guard, right? Started in the Super Bowl when the Bucs won a couple years ago with Tom. And yeah, he's been able to just fill in and kind of be in spot duty since then and has been reliable. So yes, if the Bucs could, it'd be great. I have heard of things, as I'm sure many of us have, that Dave Canales and the Panthers, he may be a guy that they're looking to poach. If it becomes a situation like that, I would let him be poached. I don't think again, it's similar to kind of the sentiment we echoed with Greg Gaines. I don't think it's an irreplaceable player. It doesn't create a massive hole. And even if you had Stinney, I think the guard position is a position you may want to look to upgrade anyway. So while yes, it'd be great to have him back because I do think he's a solid backup who can be reliable if you need him in a pinch. I don't think it's a player that is high on your priority list by any means.
I think it's fair. Next name is Chase Edmonds, somebody who I just had here on the channel recently for an interview. If you guys have not checked that out, definitely check that out. I like Edmonds, and I say that partially biased. But also he is still. I think we both agree that he was still a solid backup running back for the Bucs. If you can bring him back on a cheaper deal, I think he'd still be a good addition to the running back room, and I can certainly see him being back. What are your thoughts? And also, real quick, by the way, also Todd Bowles did say they did want to add a running back to help lighten the load of Rachaad White.
I think Chase Edmonds is likely to be back. I really enjoyed your interview with him. I'd recommend after this live stream, anybody who's in the chat hasn't seen that, you should go check it out. James did a fantastic job. And Chase came across as a super mature, awesome guy, really honestly. Very insightful. And yeah, I think there's a good chance he comes back. I thought after he was able to get healthy, his contributions were felt. It's hard with backup players because sometimes you have backup players who aren't necessarily accepting of their role, don't necessarily want to be backups, aren't comfortable there. And Chase, the way he played throughout the season and then, confirmed by what we saw in the interview that you had with him, very comfortable in that backup role, understands what he means to the team, is not trying to be anything more than that, and knows when to pick his spots and how to become a playmaker for a team. on Sundays in that capacity. So yeah, I think it would be great to have him back. It felt like he got better as the season went on. Like I said, when health became not a concern. So yes, I think it would be smart for the Buccaneers to look into bringing him back, and I don't think he would be an overly expensive return either. So yeah.
Ryan Neal's the next name on the list. You know, probably not coming back. They probably both want a new change of pace. If I had to guess.
Yeah, would be in complete agreement with you. I don't think Ryan Neal. I think we got a better chance of Byron Leftwich coming back than Ryan Neal.
Ooh, that's saying I'm not gonna go that far, but that's saying something. Chase McLaughlin is the last name that we're gonna talk about before we lump some of these guys together at the bottom of the list. I think Chase will be back, be it on a 3 year, $3 million per year deal, a $4 million per year deal is what some people have been saying out there. I think Chase is going to be back. I think he was a fantastic kicker last year for the Bucs, and you hope that things can continue there, right, Billy?
Yeah, Chase McLaughlin is he should be paid. He should be compensated fairly, right? I believe two missed kicks last season during the regular season, and they were both blocks. So yes, Chase McLaughlin. I was in the Ryan Suckup camp, and I was disappointed, admittedly, when Todd Bowles released Ryan Suckup because the Buccaneers had gone through a lot of turmoil at the kicker position, and Ryan Suckup was able to come in and stabilize that. And of course, he had some of his flaws and shortcomings. Wasn't the biggest leg kicker, but he was still a dependable kicker and an accurate kicker within his range. So when they were, toying with the concept of moving off of Suckup, I was a little bit concerned. Chase McLaughlin, though, wow. I mean, it is nice to have a kicker, and the Buccaneers have had the privilege of having a good one for a few consecutive seasons now. And kickers win and lose you games. Bucs fans know it as well as anyone. Unfortunately, maybe for all the wrong reasons, but we know it as well as anyone. Kickers win and lose you games. Chase McLaughlin was tremendous last year and should be fairly high on the priority list for the Buccaneers to bring back.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. Again, he's another guy that Jason Light said that they are in contract negotiations with
Yes.
him. So ultimately, we will see if the Bucs do end up bringing back McLaughlin. It wouldn't surprise me if they did at all. Actually, in fact, I would expect it. Finally, we have some names to lump in here. We have Zach Triner, D. Delaney, Cam Gill, and Justin School, and David Wells as the unrestricted free agents. Billy, guys like Triner, Delaney, and School, if they are back, it'd probably be something as a veteran minimum, if I had to guess, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna say just on that note, out of that group, D. Delaney stands out to me. D. Delaney always finds a way onto the field, usually due to injury, and he always finds the ball. D.
yeah,
Delaney gets in the game just periodically through random happenstance and winds up with the ball in his hands. So while I'm not saying D. Delaney is a stud by any means, I mean the man for relative to his play time and actual on-field reps, he does contribute.
yeah. And then finally,
For
for the restricted folks, you have Nick Leverett, Devin Tompkins, and Brandon Walton. The Bucs can bring all of those guys back by just offering them a sheet, essentially. So you got to figure those guys will probably be back as well,
And
right?
I think Nick Leverett, having a guy like Nick Leverett does make Aaron Stinney all that much more expendable. Because while
True.
Stinney may be better, Leverett also does have playing time. It's not like he's never stepped foot on an NFL field during real regular season action. He has. He's been in games, he's played, he's been in for the Buccaneers, and I do think if there is any sort of push from another team to go for Stinney, I think that having Leverett on the roster may make that loss a little bit more palpable.
And he's got center versatility as well, which is important to note.
Of course.
But with that being said, we've gone through all the names. So, Billy, I know you wrote this down before we started. I'm going to share my screen with you so we're both looking at the same thing. Because we're going to go through position group by position group and talk about some of the names or some of the position groups that will be needs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Is that something we can do?
Absolutely.
All right. So if we go to NFL, we are going to go to, if we can find it, free agent tracker? No. Maybe. Free agent signings? Let's go to free agent tracker, see if that gets us where we need to be. It did. Okay. All right, so let's start this off. Quarterback Billy. Not a need for the Bucs if we are to assume that Baker Mayfield is coming back, correct?
Are we living in that assumption?
We are living in this world, yes.
All right, then yeah, I don't believe that it is a need.
All right, running back. Let's take a look at it. You have the following names who are going to be available this offseason. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, Cordero Patterson. I imagine all of those guys are probably out of the Bucs price range, Billy. If I had to guess. What do you think?
Yeah, I would not expect any big name running back. The Buccaneers, I think they're pretty confident that Rashad White is the clear-cut number one moving forward and would only be looking for a depth piece to potentially spell him occasionally.
With that being said, you have guys like Alexander Madison, who was just released. I have a video about him coming out Sunday, I think. Ezekiel Elliott is also there. He has a bit of a connection to the Bucs because
Yes.
Skip Pete, the Cowboys, former Cowboys running backs coach, is the current running backs coach for the Bucs. Donta Foreman is an interesting name. What names here, speak out to you?
Yeah, it's interesting. You talked about Zeke. It'd be super curious to see what his market really is. I was surprised when he took the role with the Patriots last offseason,
Mm-hmm.
having Ramondre Stevenson being there, and I think clearly being the better of the two. And of course, if you remember, it was an ongoing rumor for the longest time last season that Zeke was interested in the Bucs and the Bucs were interested in Zeke. I haven't heard any of that this season. However, like you mentioned, running back coach and some familiarity for Zeke if he were to be interested. I do think a running back like Ezekiel Elliott is exactly what the Buccaneers would look for potentially behind Rashad White. I think Rashad White is pretty versatile and he's capable of doing a lot of different things on the football field, but I think he'd be best suited to not be forced into the role of being a power back. So if you could get somebody behind him who can take the brunt of those physical touches, I think you preserve the longevity of Rashad White's career and you give him more opportunities to get in space and make explosive plays.
So, uh, are there any big physical backs that jump off the page to you then?
Well, we talked about Zeke. I like I can't help but be biased because I do see Dare Agumbawale right there.
Yeah.
And that's just a blast from the past. Cam Akers is an interesting one, right? Cam Akers from the Rams. That's an interesting one to
Now the Vikings.
well, formerly of the Rams. That's an interesting one to potentially look at. You mentioned Foreman. I think Foreman is an interesting one as well. AJ Dillon, I don't while AJ Dillon is big, I don't feel as though he plays.
Big.
Yeah, I don't feel as though he plays that way. I don't know. I'm not the biggest AJ Dillon guy.
Mm-hmm.
I really think the Buccaneers are more likely to add a running back via the draft and re-sign, as we mentioned earlier, re-sign Chase Edmonds
Mm-hmm.
and add a running back via the draft. But I do think a power running back is the running back in theory that they need because Chase Edmonds is not going to be able to bring that, and that forces Rashad White into that role.
Wide receivers, the next group, I think we're both going to agree that we need to look at here. This is kind of where a first cap casualty we're going to talk about comes into play. Russell Gage is likely going to be released from the Bucs. They haven't done it yet, which is a little interesting. They did release another player, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But wide receiver, you look at the top names on here. Of course, bringing back Mike Evans is the priority, but the Bucs, I imagine, are going to be looking for a guy who is a 3/4 type of wide receiver. Would you agree?
Yes. I believe they really would love it if Trey Palmer could step up and slide into that role as the third receiver and like really own it. Whether or not he can, I think that's why you have to look at the free agency list and bring in competition for him. But I think ideally they would want to bring someone in and watch him be beat out by Trey Palmer.
So, are there any names that jump off the page to you? I mean, you have Van Jefferson here, formerly of the LA Rams with Liam Cohen. Scotty Miller is a free agent. Could always run it back with Scotty.
Van Jefferson's an interesting one. Caught the game-winning touchdown from Baker Mayfield in Baker's 2-minute drill against the Raiders when he was the hero of LA. I don't see Scotty Miller coming back. I think the Buccaneers should look into someone who is the opposite of what Trey Palmer is, right? Trey Palmer is definitely an athletic receiver, potentially struggles with his hands sometimes, goes through drops, a little bit inconsistent. The player you should bring in to compete against him is someone who plays to his weaknesses, right? You should bring in somebody who is sure-handed and very consistent. That would maximize the situation to its fullest rather than going for another athlete. I think you should look for someone who's a little bit more in that reliable mold that if Trey Palmer doesn't take that step forward in his progression, it doesn't have to be a flashy guy that you bring in to replace him, just someone who's consistent.
For sure. Next group. What's the next group we're going to look at here?
Should we look at tight end? I actually have explosive tight end as a need.
Okay, we can look at tight end real quick. You have some interesting names. Logan Thomas just got released, by the way, by the Washington Commanders. So that's kind of an interesting name to throw out there. Um, Aside from that, Billy, Irv Smith is possibly an interesting name in that mix. It's a bit of a group for tight ends. Would you agree with that?
I like Gesicki as a potential option up at
Okay,
the top, near the top.
Mike Gesicki,
Yes.
formerly of the Patriots. Okay,
Yes. I think Mike Gesicki can bring a little bit of a. The thing about Cade Otton, there's nothing wrong with Cade Otton. He's certainly a suitable starting caliber tight end in the league. But beyond Cade Otton, the depth is not at a the depth is not necessarily bolstered. And I also feel as though while Cade Otton is solid and dependable, could you spell him with someone who can provide you with big plays from time to time? Absolutely. And Mike Gesicki, if nothing else throughout his career, Mike Gesicki, he is a highlight reel.
it's facts. I mean, especially for the gritties. We got to give him credit for the gritties. Next, we're gonna look at guard and center. I imagine that's next on your list, Billy.
Yes, I do have guard on there.
So guard Lincoln Tomlinson just got released from the Jets. By the way, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, because if the Jets don't want you, you're in trouble. Um, but you do have some interesting names in there. Me and you talked about Cody Whitehair recently when he was released from the Bears. So we've covered that. Um, and there's some other interesting names out there, like Graham Glasgow of the Lions, Dalton Reisner of the Vikings, as well as some other interesting names out there. Is there anybody guard wise that jumps out to you, Billy?
Yeah, I'm curious to get your take on this because we know recent years, Jason Light has an affinity for drafting at that he likes drafting his linemen and he likes drafting those interior linemen. Do you think this is a position, while I don't think anybody would say guard or interior line is not a position of need at all, do you think it's something they address in free agency or something Jason Light just goes maybe round two, three, or four and tries to get one in the draft?
Well, I'm happy you brought that up because I'm going to go to center then to answer that question. Um,
Okay.
I think what ends up happening is the Bucs sign a center and move Hainsey over to guard. Or that's what I would do. I don't know if that's what the Bucs would do. That's what I would do.
And what center are you looking at, James?
Well, there's a couple of interesting names that are out there. One name that was very interesting was Brian Allen, who was just released from the Rams. He could certainly be an option for the Bucs. You have some other names out there which could be interesting, like Connor McGovern for the Jets isn't terrible, I believe. Um, you also have Aaron Brewer, who could be an interesting name. Already mentioned Brian Allen. Cody Whitehair could play center. I believe he did it last year in Chicago. So there are some names out there. Nick Gates, I believe, just got released by the Washington Commanders in a move. So there are some different types of centers out there. I think the Buccaneers, Lloyd Cushenberry is going to be maybe an interesting name. Um, Billy Price of the Saints. So like there are some names out there that the Buccaneers could consider. Brian Allen would be one guy that I think the Bucs may target.
Yeah, so admittedly, I like the concept of pulling in a veteran center like Brian Allen, plug him in, and then shift Hainsey over to left guard. Do you feel, if in that hypothetical scenario, do you feel comfortable, like everything has been addressed, or do you still feel like,
I don't I wouldn't say I'm comfortable or uncomfortable. I feel better, But I would say something like that does not eliminate the possibility of the Bucs drafting a center or a guard in the high rounds of the draft. I would say that. But this would be like you could certainly do a lot worse of a starting O line of Wirfs, Hainsey. Let's just plug in, pencil in Brian Allen, Cody Mock, and Luke Gedeke. You do worse, you know. Um, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they say, hey, maybe we view Hainsey as a backup guard, or maybe he's the backup center to Brian Allen, or maybe those two compete at center and we still want to draft a guard. That also wouldn't surprise me either, if that makes sense.
I'm with you, James. I agree. I think that is a I don't know. I'm not sure if the Bucs will look to go that route, but I do think it's a very viable option.
Moving on to the defensive side of things, do we both agree that interior defensive line, besides backup, isn't as big of a need for the Bucs?
I don't have it listed as a need.
We're gonna go to edge then. And Shaq Barrett was released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've talked about that. Billy, what are your thoughts and opinions about that move?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was something that, you could have seen it coming. I don't think that it necessarily caught, it shouldn't have caught too many people off guard. Uh, I was just left with a lot of appreciation. Shaq Barrett came to the Buccaneers before the Tom Brady era began, right? 2019, Shaq Barrett was lighting the league on fire. People forget, 19 and a half sacks, led the league in sacks, was in Defensive Player of the Year candidacy, and of course set the single season franchise record for sacks against the Atlanta Falcons that year. Just a fantastic Buccaneer. In Of course, the Bucs struggle. I don't know that they win the Super Bowl without Shaquille Barrett against the Green Bay Packers, and then of course against the Kansas City Chiefs the next week. Just a fantastic run. Of course, he did slow down at the end, and coming off the injury when you're on the wrong side of 30, and Achilles is tough for any athlete, but an older athlete at edge rusher, that's going to be difficult. I actually have a very small sneaking suspicion that Shaq Barrett will return to the Buccaneers on a much cheaper deal because I don't think he'll have a pristine market when he gets out there on the open market. And I think by all accounts, he would love to stay in Tampa Bay. And as far as from the outside looking in, I could tell the Buccaneers would love to keep him around as well. So I do think his days may not be over in Tampa Bay.
And if they don't bring back Shaq, though, I do think that adding a veteran edge is important. I don't think they're going to get a Josh Allen or a Brian Burns or anything along those lines, folks. Not even a Bryce Huff. But
No.
if you're looking at guys like,
Bryce Huff is a playmaker. He is going to get a monster contract.
oh yeah, but if you look at guys like Dante Fowler Jr. or maybe Bud Dupree, I don't know if Clowney would be an option. Maybe, but I'm not necessarily 100% sure of that. Um, Maybe a Marcus Golden who has some experience with Todd Bowles in the past. Maybe a guy like Josh Uche might be out of their price range. Is that kind of fair to say as well?
I, I honestly believe, I think this is the biggest position of need for the Buccaneers in this offseason. Pass rush on the quarterback without blitzing
Yeah.
is, in my mind, the biggest area the Buccaneers need to improve. Edge being where that pass rush generally is going to have to come from. However, I think they're going to address it in the draft more than with free agency. I think they're going to spend a high draft pick on this position. As far as free agency goes, I just don't see them nabbing any high-priced free agents at edge rusher. And if you're going to go for a lower price free agent, kind of like some of what you're hinting at there, then I think they're just going to try and reach out to Shaq and try to just keep that continuity. Because if you're going to bring in a low price guy, you might as well stick with your guy, I think is going to be the concept. But yeah, obviously some great names, and it is without question, if the Buccaneers don't address edge this offseason, it's there's gonna be a lot of questions from a lot of people. It is a gaping cavity for the Buccaneers defense that they cannot get pressure without blitzing or Vita Vea just overwhelming a center.
I agree. Moving on to linebacker, inside linebacker, you can say, but honestly, I think we're both in agreement that the plan moving forward may just be Levante David and KJ Britt and Servassier Dennis.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see if Levante David doesn't return. then this becomes
Big need.
a big need.
Big, big,
If
big, big,
Levante
big
David
need.
does return, I think Levante David in combination with KJ Britt, Gervasio Dennis, and maybe a lot of creativity by Todd Bowles on third downs with potentially mixing and matching other players closer to the line of scrimmage, maybe with someone from the safety group. I think they can put a band-aid over that position for the time being.
I agree. Cornerback, very similar thing. You have Jamel Dean, you have Carlton Davis. Zion McCollum played pretty well last year, in my opinion. Um, not some people may say it is a need due to injuries and whatnot, and that very well may be the case. But I also could just see them drafting a corner.
I would love to see the Buccaneers add a true nickel corner.
Yeah,
I don't see that on the Buccaneers team. Antoine Winfield Jr. has been forced to fill that void at times. And while Dean and Davis have definitely had really high highs for the Buccaneers, you mentioned the injuries, which is a concern, but neither one is a true nickel corner or really comfortable there. Zion McCullum, as I like the name, James, I like the name for sure. I wrote an article about Sean Murphy Bunting on
you
Bucs
made a
Nation.
video about it.
I appreciate. I didn't realize that. Thank you, James. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yes, Sean Murphy Bunting. He used to be. People forget. Sean Murphy Bunting was actually the starter opposite Carlton Davis before Jamel Dean took his job. Let's not forget what Sean Murphy Bunting was. I guess Sean Bunting now. Murphy was dropped. What he was for the team when he was on the Buccaneers, right? Buccaneers playoff run 2020, three straight games, the Washington game, the New Orleans game, and then the Packers game, getting an interception in all three. I look at Sean Murphy Bunting as a playmaker. I don't necessarily think he's elite or great in any capacity, but he's a playmaker, a proven playmaker inside of Todd Bowles' system. There's familiarity there, and I think that that's important as well. It would be nice to see a return of Sean Murphy Bunting, also someone in the next position group, I think, that we're going to address.
talking about strong safety.
Perhaps, James, perhaps.
Perhaps would it be this gentleman right here, Mr.
Oh, it
Jordan
would,
Whitehead,
James. How did you know?
the rumored man of was released, but not really.
Yes. Jordan Whitehead would be. I'm curious to get your take on Jordan Whitehead because you
I
know how I feel.
I'd love him back. I'd love him back. I just wonder if the Bucs can afford it. You know, this may be one of those positions where you may just have to cut your losses. I brought up the idea recently that like, man, the Bucs might be so strapped for cash after they re-sign all their guys. Are they just going to say, well, let's see what Christian Izien and Kayvon Merriweather have at strong safety and go from there? Because you know, you can't afford to bring in a big time guy, right? Whoever you bring in, it's gonna have to be somebody cheap on the cheaper end of things. I think that's fair to say. Because I mean, you'd be spending a lot of money in your secondary. Um, One guy who I know was brought up was John Johnson. I believe Evan brought this up at the Cannon Fire podcast recently. Um, Aside from that, it is kind of tough. Like, I would love Jordan Whitehead back, but the price has got to be right. You know what I mean?
Yes, I would agree with you. I think Jordan Whitehead's impact on the Buccaneers has felt in a negative way since he left. I think he was a hard hitter. The Buccaneers miss having, consistent tackling, I think, has been a little bit of a difficulty for the Buccaneers in the last couple seasons. Um, and I do think they miss Jordan Whitehead. I will say you raise a good point in terms of like being cap strapped and then having to mix and match. I think if they were to go with Sean Murphy Bunting, Zion McCollum did feature at safety a little bit last season. So potentially then Murphy Bunting, your two corners in place as Dean and Davis. And then you talked about Izien and Winfield. You could have Izien, Winfield, McCollum, even a guy like D. Delaney, who has also moved around across the secondary and played a little bit of another former Buccaneer there. A guy like D. Delaney, who has played a little bit of everything in the Buccaneers secondary. Luckily, with Todd Bowles, he's pretty good. He's pretty creative with how he deploys his defenders, especially in the secondary. So he should be able to, if they aren't able to improve the position, he should be able to mask it.
Maybe they'll bring back Justin Evans. You know, he's only
You-
28, 29 years old. He was
Do you
placed.
remember Bruce Arians' quote about Justin Evans, James?
No, what did he say?
You don't remember?
I mean, I remember he had a really, really spicy quote about Justin Evans, but I don't remember what it was specifically now.
when Justin Evans was hurt and he missed all of camp, because I don't believe Justin Evans ever actually played for Bruce Arians. He was injured from the time Bruce started coaching to
Mhm.
the time Justin Evans left the team. They said, "When will Justin Evans return?" The reporter asked Bruce Arians, and he's I think believe he said, "I don't know. You only God knows. You'd
Oh,
have to ask God."
oh my gosh.
This is a very fantastic, classic Bruce Arians quote.
Good lord. Well, hey, maybe they bring him back. Maybe it's a reunion. Years in the making. Years in the making, by the way.
Justin Evans was fantastic for the Buccaneers
Yeah,
up
maybe
until
bring him
they
back. We'll get
they
the
ball.
petition going.
Yeah.
He's healthy now. He's played 2 years since he's come back. Bring him back. You know, why not? Former Buck. Dude. That'd be sick.
What about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? You skipped that name, James.
I did. Again, if the price is right, for sure, that'd be interesting. Hey,
No,
you went to Florida?
no,
No?
I disagree. It's not interesting at all.
Hey, man,
I was being sarcastic,
he's not
James.
on the Saints anymore. He's fine. I want Justin Evans.
If we're just picking people, give me Jordan Whitehead.
Heck yeah.
Give me
And
Jordan White.
with that being said, that's pretty much all the needs, right? That to basically cover. And with that, we've pretty much got a pretty decent preview of free agency. Is that fair to say, Billy?
I feel confident. Is the chat feeling good?
I believe so. Let's check in with them because we hold on one moment. Let's go ahead and check in with the chat. Yeah, absolutely. David will be back. Will Buccaneers? David will return. It's going good, Josh. Baker over Fields. Yeah, the Baker Mayfield stuff was, or the Justin Fields thing was wild. We need a replacement for David eventually, but not yet. And maybe they're hoping that the guy's eventually Servatier Dennis or KJ Britt. Who knows? Um,
Yes, I do think that's a good point that they will at some point need to go that way. I just think that that's lower on the list of priorities. They're going to try to push that back. Also, just because the linebacker position in general, it's a phased out position in the modern NFL. You can get by without having an elite player like the Buccaneers have had there for a while now with Levante. So I think that they will. I think that they'll try to sneak by with what they've got.
Jenna says off topic, but looks like a great defensive back class at this combine. I mean, that's not off topic. The Bucs could draft a corner. They could very easily draft a safety as well. So I wouldn't say that's off topic at all.
Yeah, I mean, there was not that long ago that people were talking about between Dean and Davis, one of them potentially leaving the Buccaneers because they're both highly paid. Neither performed incredibly well last season.
Yeah,
Certainly not up to what their contract standard would say that they're going to. So yeah, is corner potentially something the Bucs would look at? I wouldn't
I
take it
wouldn't.
off the table
Yeah,
by any means.
I wouldn't rule it out at all. Um, but with
And
that,
with safety, if Antoine Winfield Jr. does by some happenstance not return, then yeah, safety becomes a need for sure.
absolutely. Well, that being said, Billy, we've been going for a little while now, about 43 minutes. And I know you got to be out of here in the next 15. So it is time, the next 20, but it's time for what we do. It's time
Oh
for
my
the.
gosh, the Bucks are on it.
Yes, the Bucs are on the immaculate grid. How about that?
Holy cow.
So, it's time for our
Oh, this is
immaculate.
incredible.
It's time for our immaculate grid, everybody. Y'all know the drill. We always end off every show with this. Starting off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the San Francisco 49ers.
We absolutely have to nail the Tampa Bay Buccaneers row. Everybody understand the pressure is on.
Yeah,
The Bucks row must be perfect.
yeah, it's true. So, names for Bucs and 49ers, Billy? Jeff Garcia's one.
Jeff Garcia. Yep, yep, yep. That's on there. I'm trying to think of old obscure Niners.
Deshaun Goldston.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, James, you're pulling these. I love it.
I thought Bobby
I
Rainey,
love
but I don't know if he played for the 49ers.
I love when you start out hot. Get the momentum flowing.
Right?
I take a little while to like kick into gear, but you just start out firing.
Throwing out names.
I don't think Bobby Rainey. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay.
Jeff Garcia feels like the obvious one.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of people are familiar with Jeff Garcia.
Yeah. Vernon Hargraves? Did he play? Did he play for the 49ers? Did he play for a different team?
Went to the Texans.
Maybe that was the team I'm thinking
He went
of.
to the Bengals, I believe. After
Bengals.
this.
That was the team I was thinking of.
Yeah, I don't
Bengals.
think he went to
Because
the
he ran out
Niners.
onto the field and got a flag, even though he wasn't in the game.
So funny. So funny.
The madman.
Yes, I have a friend who's a Bengals fan, and that moment I could not help but just the pain I felt for him,
It's brutal.
but also the memes of Vernon Hargraves.
The absolute memes. Who else? I might just go with Deshaun Golston.
Deshaun Golfin.
I don't think people are going to remember him playing for the Bucs.
What do you think the percentage is going to be on Goldson?
Ooh, 10
10? Okay.
or 1.
Wow, James.
Can't believe people don't remember Deshaun Golston. Sad.
That's outstanding, James.
Eagles, Bucs. Michael
10
Bennett.
out of 10, James. Starts it off with a 1.
Did Michael Bennett play for the Eagles?
Yes.
Okay, or is that his brother Martellez?
Martell's Bennett played for the Patriots and the Bears. I don't know if he played for the Eagles. Michael Bennett was definitely on the Eagles. I feel confident in that.
Okay, Michael Bennett is 1. Who else?
We missed Steve Young. Would have been a good one for Niners Bucks.
Yeah, that would
A
have been a good
throwback.
one. I pull up the
Thank
chat.
you, Sean.
Let me put the chat up here, by the way, over on the left-hand side so everybody can see. Yeah. Who else, Billy? Eagles and Bucks.
No, we need old school. Give me like your 2010 Philadelphia Eagles roster. Trying to think of who's on the dream team.
LaShawn McCoy.
Oh, yes, James. That's a good one.
You gonna go with LaShawn?
I don't know if anybody remembers he was on the Bucks.
Yeah. You gonna go with Shady?
What was the other one you said?
Michael Bennett.
Oh, Michael Bennett. That could be a good one too.
Let's go with
Oh,
Mike.
Vinny Curry. Vinny Curry.
Oh yeah, nobody remembers Vinny Curry was on the
Vinny
Bucs.
Curry. Come on.
Wow, that's nuts. All right,
Curry.
Bucks and Giants. Well, this one's easy.
Oh my gosh.
Bucks and Giants.
You said it's easy?
Yeah.
Are
Move
you
on.
thinking of Mike Lennon? Yeah, knew it. I knew it.
Gotta support my guy Mike.
Oh, you and Mike Lennon. Oh, Deshaun Jackson. Wow, we're
Hey.
missing the easy ones. Deshaun Jackson, duh.
Yeah, that's true. You want to go with Mike Glennon?
No, 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 no,
Bobby
no,
Rainey
no.
played for the Giants. I'm pretty sure
Logan Mankins, did he play for the Giants?
he did not.
Why did I think he played for Giants, Patriots, Bucks?
I don't know.
Um.
I think you're thinking of Nate Solder.
Oh, Logan Ryan.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Do you think Mike Glennon is better than Logan Ryan? I know
No.
you think that in your heart, but as a
No, I
pick,
don't. I don't think so. I'll go with Logan Ryan. Okay, 5%'s not bad.
James, we killed the Bucks row.
Bears and 49ers. This is where it's gonna get tough.
Bears and 49ers.
You know? Bears and 49ers. I feel like there's like a linebacker. Brian Hoyer? Rex Grossman? Brian Hoyer had to have played for one of these teams. 49ers, Eagles, or Giants. He had to have.
I don't know if he did actually.
Maybe he didn't. I don't know.
Nick Foles, you got for Eagles Bears.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good poll, but
I don't think people remember he played for the Bears.
He threw a touchdown to Jimmy Graham. That's really all I remember of his
Oh.
Bears career.
We're gonna say Nick Foles. No,
Oh,
that's fine. Whatever. Look, listen, we're pressed on. We're pressed on time. I feel like as long as we are immaculate, that's what matters.
No, James, we must beat our record.
Well, it's not happening now. That's for sure.
All right. Bears, Niners.
Yeah. A running back, Mike Davis.
Is Mike Davis? Are you right about that?
I have no idea.
Oh,
I have
you said it
no.
with such confidence. You fooled me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Am I seeing not? I just want to say LaMichael James.
Yeah.
49ers, Bears.
Bears and Giants. Oh, Bears and Giants. I know this one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We got
Every
him
chance we can. Wow.
yes.
Of course.
Of course it would work out that way.
Yes, we got him no matter what.
Bears and 49ers.
Mike Singletary.
You sure?
No, no, I was referencing
Oh.
because he coached the Niners. He
Oh.
played for the Bears and coached the Niners.
10,000 passing yards in a career. At least one game for the team in their career.
10,000 passing yards is so tough because I can't, in my mind, put into perspective how many yards that actually is.
Yeah,
Like, I think of a guy like Tim Rattay. I'm like, did he have 10,000 passing yards?
it's true.
Like, it feels like that's not a lot if you played.
Did Trent Dilfer ever play for the 49ers? Did Vinny Testaverde ever play for the 49ers? Or the Eagles or the Giants? Didn't he play for the Giants?
I don't know about this. Did he?
I don't know
Vinny
either.
T? Where's Willie? We didn't have Willie in there. Oh, Richard Dent? Is that a pull from the chat? Richard Dent definitely did play for the Bears. I don't remember whether or not he played for the Niners.
We're going to go for it.
Oh, let's go, Chad.
Way to go, R. Brown.
R. Brown. That is well done. Appreciate you.
10,000 passing yards. Oh, did Kaepernick have 10K?
Oh, that's too obvious, James. Come on.
Is
Colin
it?
Kaepernick? Why don't we pick Joe Montana?
Good. We
No, they have to pick someone. It's got to be somebody who's at least slightly under the radar.
Fine.
They only have to play one game for the Niners, so it's got to just be a good quarterback who happened to just skip on over to San Fran for a little while.
Jeff Garcia?
That's better than Kaepernick. That's not terrible.
Ain't nobody gonna hold on. Ain't nobody gonna remember Jeff Garcia. Nobody remembers.
Nice.
Nobody remembers.
Nice. All right.
Eagles.
Digits.
Vic.
Oh, could have been Jeff Garcia.
Could have been Jeff Garcia. Vince Young.
Hey, McCown. Oh, but wow. Vince Young. We could use McCown, Vince Young.
Please, please, Vince.
Are you going Vince Young?
Please,
I know
Vince.
you like Vince Young.
Please,
That is
Vince,
just
tell
your
me
guy.
You got 10K. Vince, you no. We're going Josh McCown. And that'll be it. We're not immaculate today. Wow. 0.7% for Joshy boy. Well, now I need to know.
It's down.
Oh, hold on. Now I need to know. Of course, Vince Young let us down.
That's your guy, too. You just love you some Vince Young.
He was 1,000 yards away. It's like 4 games.
James, he never even threw for more than 2,600 yards in his career.
It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
James, you and Vince Young.
I thought I had it.
Who would our Giants pick have been?
Gino.
I don't know. Does Gino have 10,000? Now we could actually look it up. Does Gino have? Oh, well, now he definitely does. Yeah, he definitely
totally does now.
I don't know if he did when he played for the Giants, though.
Well, it doesn't matter if
he does
you
have
said
10,000.
he played one game for them. So Gino would have been a good one.
He wouldn't have had it, though, if he didn't play for the Seahawks. If we did that immaculate grid 3 years ago, it wouldn't have counted.
We would have been screwed.
Dang it, James.
Mike Glenn wouldn't have had it.
We're never going for Vince Young again.
No, we can't now. Ew. Did Mike
It's
Glennon ever?
poison.
Well, Vince Young had more passing yards than Mike Glennon, so
Yeah, in less seasons.
take that.
Your boy.
Take that.
But Mike Lennon played for more teams. Haha.
I don't know if that's
He's better for the Immaculate Grid.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Well, Billy, with that being said, we
At
end.
least we crushed the Bucks column.
That's all that. Yes,
And we got a fantastic chat poll with Richard Dent. That was a fantastic one out of the chat there, for sure.
it's true as well. But Billy, we've previewed free agency. It's going to be a fun time. We'll probably be back right before the start of free agency, I guess I should say.
I love it.
We may have some re-signings to talk about by that point.
Yes. Might have some breaking news.
Perhaps. Perhaps. We'll have to wait and see. But guys, thanks so much for watching. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Go check out Billy's channel. By the way, it is in the description of this live stream. Let's get him to 1,000 subscribers. He's got something cool planned. What is it? You have to wait and see. But guys, thanks so much for watching this. Hope you guys all enjoyed. Billy, do you have any final words before we go ahead and get out of here?
Next time, we will break our Immaculate Grid record of 19. The rarity will be higher than 19 next time, guys. We got it 3 times ago. We got to 19, and we have fallen off since. It is our vow to you next time. We're back up. Yes, we're in the teens next time.
You heard it here first. Well, guys, hey, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys all enjoyed. As always, I will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go.